because of a family connection. He died in 2008, and a few years later, I'm perusing California cards on eBay, and I see a listing for a group of cards from Switzerland, California. So I thought I better check this out, and that's the reason I'm here today. So most of us are probably familiar with cards like this from the early 1900s, boostering California and how wonderful it is here, and everyone should come here for the great climate and the healthy living. Pick an orange right off the tree. And as you can see, what's in the background, this is just a card, it said early 1900s, promoting California and the wonderful life that's out here. And part of it is that we have, mountains, beautiful mountains. And one of them, the San Gabriel Mountain Range, which separates Los Angeles from the Central California, San Joaquin Valley, and the Mojave Desert. It runs for about 75 miles east-west. And if you've ever driven through the Grapevine to come into Los Angeles, you've driven through the western section of the San Gabriel Mountains. And so this is a card from, as you can see, showing Mount Lowe and Mount Wilson from Pasadena. And the highest peaks up there are about 5,000 to 10,000 feet. And you might be familiar with Mount Lowe. Oh, here's a map I wanted to show you too, what we're talking about. So look at all the trails that are running through the San Gabriel Mountains. Because something I learned about this is that we all know about the golden era of postcards, the late 1800s into the early 1900s. Well, that was also considered the golden era of hiking and camping in Los Angeles. And so here are all of these mountain trails that ran through the San Gabriel Mountains just above Los Angeles. Here's downtown Los Angeles here. Here's Pasadena. And since everybody's here, by the way, Sherman Oaks, that's where I grew up. Studio City, that's where Shav lived for a while. Van Nuys is where I went to high school. Oh, and also you see number 3 here, Mount Lowe, because you might be familiar with Mount Lowe. Oh, also this is before I get to Mount Lowe, this is a mule train going up to Mount Wilson in that period. And here's another mule train, and I'm including this card just because it's from September 11th, 1911. And you can see the messages in French, even though it's going to being written to someone in Los Angeles. So it's very popular for people to go up into the San Gabriel Mountains and go hiking. Now here's Mount Lowe, which you might be familiar with, because I'm looking at my notes here. In 1893, Thaddeus Lowe builds a funicular to take passengers about 1,500 feet in elevation to a hotel. Here's the hotel. And he added a 5-mile railway a little bit later, and he employed somebody we might be familiar with, Andrew Halliday, who's better known for his work with the San Francisco cable cars. And here's, I always like this postcard of Mount Lowe, the little railroad that he did around his mountain. Now, here's a question. Who recognizes these guys? I don't see any hands going up. They are the Perry brothers. That's U.S. Navy Commodore Matthew Calbraith Perry on the left, and his brother Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry on the right. Both fought in the Battle of 1812. And in 1853, Matthew led U.S. ships to Tokyo to open diplomatic relations with Japan. And I mention them because in 1826, a child was born in Virginia, and his parents named him Commodore Perry Switzer. Not Matthew or Oliver, but Commodore Perry Switzer. And I just thought, somebody whose name is Commodore Perry Switzer, that's rather odd. So I had to include the Perry brothers. And then in the late 1850s, Switzer moved from Ohio to California, landed in Los Angeles, where he was started up a construction business. And he and a friend, Harvey Walker, then bought some land in the San Gabriel Mountains near a waterfall and about 10 miles from Pasadena. He gave an interview in 1906 where he discussed building his campground and what it was like to bring people up to his camp. In 1884, they cleared a road to his land, and he built a cabin, had some tents, and then started welcoming visitors to what he called Switzer's Camp. It could be reached only by burro, which came up about twice a week, or of course you could hike there. And here's a postcard of burrowing to Switzerland. And here's the arrow points to where his camp was. You can see above Pasadena, they're directly underneath it. And he was fairly successful. They would have a problem. Forest fires would wipe them out once in a while. And it was a lot of streams had to be crossed, and sometimes the roadway, the path would get washed out. So in 1911, Lloyd and Bertha Austin bought the camp, and they added new buildings, some recreation facilities, and a stone chapel, which you'll see later, on the edge of a mountain near the camp. They renamed it Switzerland and issued pretty much all the postcards you'll see here. So here they are, sitting on a boulder in front of a stone bridge. Here's a little article that was in the paper about them. See, high water and fishing, of course, was popular up there. You can see cold trout stream, excellent table, fresh milk and vegetables, store, new housekeeping, Strawberry Peak, a mountain you could climb, tennis, croquet, charming side trips. Here's a brochure they put out. Here's another ad for Switzerland and some of the other camps that were up there in the San Gabriel Mountains. And here's an ad I found. What I like about this ad is it mentions Clifton's. Now, Clifton's was a cafeteria that opened in downtown Los Angeles in 1931. And the golden rule, and you could pay whatever you wanted. This is the Depression, and they weren't going to turn anyone away from Clifton's. But I just thought it's a little odd that you would go to Clifton's. This is what Clifton's looked like from the outside. It had kind of a Polynesian motif. You would go to Clifton's. You might go to the visitor center there in the lower left-hand corner to get on a bus and be taken to the trailhead, and you'd then get on the burro to go up to Switzerland. You can see in the lower left-hand corner where it says, pay what you wish. Here's a little close-up. This is a little bit later view of their hospitality service, where you could also get tickets to go see the television show Queen for a Day. So I thought I had to include that. But you're going to Clifton's, Polynesian-style cafeteria, and you're going to sign up to be driven to the trailhead to get on a burro to take you up to Switzerland. I thought that's kind of an unusual process. So, and here's what you would find once you finally got to the lodge. This is the main lodge, and you at Switzerland. See, everything was built with a lot of stone, of course, from the area. The San Gabriel Mountains, it's a desert down in Los Angeles. So there are no redwood trees, lots of scrub oak, lots of brush, lots of rattlesnakes. Here's a view of the pergola in front of the lodge. Here's another view of the lodge. And you can see down below, they're playing croquet. Home again at Switzerland. And according to a little bit I read about this place, it was very popular with everyone. Lots of movie stars would visit. But I don't know whether they put up 8x10 glossies like they do at dry cleaners down in Los Angeles. Oh, and if you look through the trees here, that's the chapel. We'll see that again later. So it was just a nice place to go for get out of Los Angeles for a couple of days, only about 15 miles from Pasadena. Here's the rock bridge and the lodge. And here's the couple postcards of the interior. This was called the Rock Room. It was built around this giant boulder that was in the center of the room. I like this woman kind of hiding up here in the corner reading, and a guy over here in front of the fireplace, and a woman sitting over there. Oh, of course, pine cones. Here's another view of the rock, the fireplace and the rock room. They call it the boulder balcony. And you can see a lot of the furniture and a lot of the decor is made from parts of trees that are taken down in the area and turned into furniture. Look at this table over here with the built-in bench. And don't forget, everything had to come up on that trail, including the piano. Here's a view of the rock room to the left that we saw, and the dining room. Now, I'm assuming that this place did not have electricity or running water. So once again, all the light has to be provided by candles or some other form of lighting, which is why I think you can see how bright it is outside. So this picture was taken during the day. If you counting the number of tables and chairs, it looks like they could handle about 70 to 80 people at one time here in the dining room. Here is the Switzer Osiris. Once again, someone takes a piece of an old tree and turns it into this animal. And here's a good-looking dog riding the Switzer Osiris. And down in the lower, at the very bottom, Frassers, I know, and did a lot of postcards. They were photographers who did a lot of the postcards in this area. And then just some views of the camp overall. Here are some of the cabins people would stay in. Now, I don't know whether it was when you got an individual cabin or if it was sort of a dorm style where you just had to sleep with whoever else was in your room. And you can see they do have some smokestacks because the only heating up there probably would have been from a potbelly stove. So this is called the Gorge Brink Cabins. And here's the scene down the gorge. Here's Strawberry Peak, which you could climb at 6,150 feet high. And just some views of the area around Switzer's. They seem to refer to it Switzer's or Switzerland. They're both this, either one. So lots of creeks, lots of waterfalls, barley flats. You go horseback riding. Try as I may, I've been unable to read what it actually says there until at the end you can see near Switzer's. Something about a bridge. And here's just a creek running wild. So to get there, you might have to cross quite a few creeks like this, going across the trail. This, I think, is the waterfall that inspired Commodore Perry Switzer to build his camp in the area. They're about 70, 75-foot waterfall near the camp. And here's the chapel that the Austins built. This is when it was first built. And later on, they added those arches to the right. Here's the view through the arches. And you can see the pews. Here they are carrying an organ to the chapel. Because you have to have an organ in a chapel. Here's another view of them carrying the organ along the trail to the chapel. And here's the interior of the chapel. You can see the stained glass windows. And once again, see how the furniture is all hewn from trees, local trees in the area. I guess it's a point to say progress started having its effect on Switzerland and the other camps in the area. That orange line represents the Los Angeles Crest Highway, which they started building in 1929. It was finally finished in the 50s because World War II got in the way. But what it meant was that some of the camps could now be accessed by automobile. So what would you rather do? Drive your car to a camp in the mountains or hike 10 to 12 miles or ride a burro 10 to 12 miles? Here's ads for some of the camps that you could drive to. Just 29 miles from Los Angeles via the Angeles Crest Highway. You just go up there for a Saturday night dance. Same thing here at Opids. Just take the highway up to Opids. And another problem that started occurring is forest fires. The Forest Service, a lot of this land started coming under the authority of the U.S. Forest Service, and they realized they could not protect these camps in case of a forest fire. So they forced them to close. And Switzerland kind of stayed around until the late 1950s. Here's this is just a photograph of Opids, where you could drive right up to it off of the Angeles Highway. And so eventually the Forest Service forced all the camps to close, tore them down. If you go there, you might be able to find some of the original foundations of the chapel and the lodge and some of the other buildings, but pretty much that represented the end of the trail of Switzerland and this program.
What a shame! What a shame that they would. What was the reason for them to insist that these camps close?
It was the threat of forest fire, because
Okay.
they didn't, it's the 1930s, 40s, 50s. They didn't have the ability they didn't have helicopters. They didn't have planes dropping water. They couldn't really get up there to save people. That's always the issue, is can they save people? And the Forest Service decided they couldn't. There's all those trails are still open, and there are places that are named after Switzerland, like a Switzerland picnic ground, but there's no really overnight camping up there anymore.
That's great, Dan. Thank you so much. Everybody that wants to unmute themselves to ask questions, there's nothing really on the chat line here, so feel free. But the one question I need to ask is, were they able to save the Switzer or whatever it was?
I don't know. Who knows what happened to the Switzer?
That what a shame that would be if they lost that. Okay. Anyway, anyone have any comments or questions for Dan? Please go ahead. I've got a few, but I'll let you guys go first. I noticed while we're waiting for Don to unmute his screen, I noticed there are a few shots there where they had tent cabins like they used to have up in Yosemite, because it looked like there was quite a few people that could be accommodated at that dining room, and there had to be more room for people to stay, I would think.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many cabins or what other facilities they offered.
Yeah.
There was a postcard showing those 3 cabins.
Yeah.
I'm asking, did they advertise the altitude of these places for health reasons, I wonder? Because in Switzerland itself, they make a big deal out of how many meters above the ocean it is, the altitude. But did they do that with Switzerland?
I don't know. I mean, this is the 1920s and teens, 20s, and 30s in Los Angeles. It couldn't have been too smoggy. Los Angeles was just advertised as having great weather and great climate and
Oh, I
clean.
think it was, yeah, it was
So,
good
yeah,
air
so-
there
yeah.
until 1940 or so, or the 40s.
So I think it must have just been
Mhm.
go enjoy the great outdoors.
Huh. That's riding, how much, 12 miles on the back of a burro?
Yeah, 12 miles to get up to Switzerland on a burro.
I can't imagine being on a burro for 12 miles.
It'd be like 3 to 5 hours.
Take you about 2 weeks to get over it.
And how did they get that organ up there? I have one of those organs. They're very heavy. So I don't know how they managed to get it up there. Do they have ox carts or something?
Well, you saw those 3 or 4 guys carrying it. They might have.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
they're so heavy.
The Switzer, the Austins advertised a stage, so they might have had some kind of a cart,
Oh, I see.
horse-drawn, burro-drawn cart that they could take people up there or take. I mean, they had to bring up a lot of food.
They
Yeah,
had to bring
yeah, a lot of food.
bring a lot of
I-
stuff.
I was gonna ask you the timeline, when did he actually start building it? Maybe you mentioned it and I didn't catch it, but when did it start?
Switzer opened it, Commodore Perry Switzer opened it in 1885, and he ran it for a couple of years. Then it got burned down, forest fire in the 1890s. Some other people ran it, but there's not much about them. And then finally in 1911, Lloyd and Bertha Austin took it over in 1911. They had it for the longest period of time, about 25 years until they retired. And then once again, in the late 30s into the 40s, there was different owners. But by then, people had a lot more choices for their recreational dollar. In the well, of course, World War II interfered, but then there's a lot more you could do with your money. You could go to the movies, amusement parks. Disneyland opens up in the 1950s. Yeah.
Where was
Disney had a
about
yeah,
where's
so
the Mount Lowe resort?
yeah, and of course Mount Lowe that burned down too.
That was a bigger deal.
Yeah, that was a big to do, but he couldn't make a go of it, and it eventually burned down as well.
I had one other thing that I observed when you were talking. I mean, with the amount of people that they had visiting this place, evidently, it seemed like there was, of course, there was croquet and there's, the things that you showed on the card. But was there any entertainment? Did they have any celebrities come up there to entertain, or
Well,
bands? Or
I think in one of the ads it mentions they threw a huge party like on a Memorial Day weekend that drew a lot of people. Celebrities' names were mentioned in some of the articles I read, that they would just go up there to spend a few days in the mountains. And of course, the other camp, the ad at the end showed that they would have dancing on the weekends. I don't think Switzerland had dancing, but yeah, but they would, it's sort of like, in the Santa Cruz Mountains where we had Chateau Bussy.
yeah,
People could go and get, spend a weekend there and be in a little cabin.
yeah,
Just a lot, and I always think, at that, when that place was in existence, they had to go up a very small road, it was a very, curvy mountainous road to get there. So the same with in the San Gabriel Mountains.
yeah.
Those cars would break down.
Yeah.
You
But
could, yeah.
it's really interesting to me, being a native Angelino, and learning about this stuff, even though I was born and raised down there, is just fascinating. I don't know how you stumbled upon it, but it's really interesting.
Like I say, I saw these postcards on eBay for Switzerland, California. And I said, I got to check that out because I had a friend who collected Swiss postcards.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
yeah, Shaw, we're both from the San Fernando Valley. We didn't bother with the San Gabriel Valley. That was another world out there in
That's
Pasadena.
true. That's true. That's true. Can't thank you enough, Dan. You do a great job every time, and thank you so much for giving the talk this evening.